right. I'm gonna check audio. Gonna check and make sure the audio is on, as I always do. In the video for that matter. If this is working. Make sure the audio is going. I can hear a lot of other noises. Yeah. I'm just double checking. Just double checking now. It is on. Set that to normal. Okay. Okay, so we've got the right microphone working, and just give me a second, everybody. I know you guys are all filtering in now. Just a moment. Okay. All right, let's see if the audio picks up from over here. It's a little echoey, but it's good. Okay. Okay. Now I'll just give a couple minutes for everybody to trickle on in, and yeah, you can see it here. So what I'll do is I'll check it here, make sure video and audio is good. And should be good.
So is that as close as it gets, or?
Well, what we actually need to do is bring that camera down, to be honest. But we can move closer.
What about setting it up on a barrel?
Bear with us. It's a brand new video audio setup. As long as the Wi-Fi kicks. All right.
Well, if we put another.
Let's see a sec.
Put another barrel up and have it.
Well, this will be pretty good this height. I think we'll be a little more head on. Okay, we should have audio, and all I gotta do is place the camera, hopefully, over there. Yeah, ta-da! Okay, double check audio. Actually, can you guys hear us? Just let us know in the comments. Just wait for a comment to come up that says, yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Bam.
Did they say yes?
Yep, people are good, it seems.
All right.
We are live with a small amount of technical difficulties. But
So let's see if technology can hang on long enough
a
here.
little longer, yeah. Okay, guys, we are here with Sean Davies. I know I didn't say anything to you guys earlier, exactly what's happening. The announcement is this: I get to sit down with this Mustang legend.
Oh, yeah. Well,
He's very humble, so everybody say good things. Oh, see, everybody's... okay, so what we're going to talk about is Mustangs. Obviously, this is the guy to come talk to. You guys know him. You heard me talk about him before. Many times. If there's anything that you'd ever want to kind of figure out, first place to go is Sean's channel. If you haven't seen it, it's Colorado Reinsman. He says he's going to get back into making videos. And you've had a lady just bother you recently about, are you alive?
well, I just had an email.
So, oh good, it works.
Okay. We're going to have some of these interruptions once in a while, so just stick with us.
Yep.
I just had a lady today send me an email and ask if I was okay and everything was all right. So let me explain to everybody what's going on. 3 years ago, I moved from the ranch that I leased in Longmont, Colorado, that had flooded out in 2012. A wonderful client of mine partnered with us, and she purchased this place that we're at here, Spirit Heart Ranch. And from day one, we've been renovating and really bringing life back into this place. And it's been a hardly ever a day off. And I'm still training horses and still doing a lot of lessons and horse work. And I go out every now and then and do a clinic. But for the most part, my life has been very busy, and I'm running out of hours in the day to edit videos. I've got about 2 or 3 years worth of videos on my computer to do. But I will get back. I'm winding down some of our big projects, sort of. I'm hoping to be done a lot with this through this summer, and then I'll get back to doing videos for Colorado Reinsman, and hopefully getting some more good stuff out. But today, you know, I had invited Graham down before to, he'd talk with me about some horse issues. So I invited him down to come spend a weekend with me, kind of do a personal clinic. And that's what we've been doing the last couple of days. So I will, Graham's got some questions for me. So I'm going to kind of let him, ask me some questions, and we'll take some of your questions and we'll kind of go from there.
Sorry a second, we take off the light. Oh, the hat, no, this is, there you go.
There, is that better?
We need a light coming up this way.
Okay.
We're in the arena because it's an appropriate place to be, obviously. And I don't know if Sean's brave enough. He said he might bring in some horse or something. I said, hey, let's just have a chitty chat.
Well, we'll have a chit chat, and then if we have some questions or something, maybe I'll pop out for a few and grab a horse and just we'll try to do something. But whether it's this one or maybe we'll do another one before Graham leaves tomorrow, that might be a good one.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get rolling.
Yes, so anybody, if you have any questions, remember, as I've said before, if you could please write question and then some stars or something or whatever, something that'll make it stand out. Otherwise, when I go to flick through these comments later, I might not see it, and you might not get your question answered if you have one. Now, Sean knows that I have had about 2 billion questions for him, and I imagine there are some points where he's just going, are all Canadians like this? Oh my God. But I do have a few that I thought might be appropriate to start off a live stream, because some of you may not have, there's got to be a couple of you out there that haven't heard of Sean. So I thought,
billion.
if you're into Mustangs, you've heard of Sean. He just, like I said, he's a humble man. And his training shows it. I've been here for, it's the 3rd day. I don't think we've stopped.
No,
we haven't stopped.
We've either been having breakfast talking horses, or we've been here doing horses. We were in this arena about 5 hours yesterday, and I can tell you, we were tired by the end of it.
Yeah.
And then here later in the week, as soon as he goes home, 2 days later or the next day, I do a corporate team building with Mustangs, this corporate sales group with a client of mine who I'm training 2 Mustangs for. She's bringing in her whole sales team for a national electric company, supply company coming in. We're going to work on, body language and team building, and using the Mustangs as a barometer for their abilities. So that's going to be a 2-day deal. So it's a busy time right now. So
I actually want to talk about that barometer thing shortly here, but first, maybe if you could tell everybody, how'd you get into Mustangs and why'd you stick with Mustangs?
Well, we'd have to go way back. A lot of my young life, I was with horses, and I could ride just about anything. And I lived with my aunt, who was the horse person in my family. We had world champion Morgans, and I was training Morgan stallions when I was, 12 years old. I was training stallions for other folks who had kids who were showing horses. And I was never really interested in showing that much. But I did so many different things. Well, then life took turns, and I had a pretty rough childhood. We're not going to go into a lot of that, but life took some turns, and then I ended up in the military, and then after the military, I did a lot of different work, and then I had a big gap there. But during the military service, I went over to Spain a lot, rode quite a few horses over there, kind of sticking with it. Got back, came back to horses, and, you know, Mustangs had always intrigued me, and they were something that was going to be a challenge for me, because I always liked a challenge when it came to horses. So then when I found an opportunity to get my first Mustang, it was after a time when I'd had it was after a divorce, and, you know, I had a lot of things internally that I had to deal with, and that mare was a knot-headed, wild horse who would stick her foot in your leg if she got a chance, but she helped me immensely. I owe that horse so much in my life, and I just returned the favor to her at 20-some years old, letting her go free on the Black Hills Wild Horse Sanctuary up in South Dakota. Because that horse always wanted to be free. I rode her, I did some clinics with her, but I returned the great service that she gave to me by letting her go free on Black Hills, and they were nice enough to let me give her that kind of honor. And but from her, I went in to do the Mustang makeovers. I've done 4 of those and gotten 5 horses adopted out. Of course, I bought or adopted back my first 2 years' horses, and they're my kids and beginning lesson horses, Rocket and Taz. But I find that Mustangs are probably the purest ideal of a horse when you're working with horses. If you want to really see who you are and what your abilities are as a horse trainer, as a horse person, then Mustangs will draw that out of you. They will hold a great big full-length mirror up to you, and whatever and whoever you are, they show it to you, for better or worse, and sometimes that mirror is not a pleasant place to look into.
I think it's a convex mirror.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it'll reflect your true self. It will not reflect who you think you are. That mirror of that Mustang shows who you truly are and how you better change to work with horses. Because a lot of other horses let you get away with stuff that a Mustang won't. So that's why I continue to work with them. That's why I have clients say, I want that relationship that you are getting with these horses. And I tell them the relationship I get may not be the relationship you get without a lot of work. So when we talk Mustangs, Graham was asking me, why Mustangs? And what is the difference between them and a domestic? So one of my things that I've asked people, do you like kittens? They go, yeah, I like kittens. Or let's say they're not a cat person. Do you like puppies? Do you like dogs? Yeah, I love dogs. Do you go out and adopt a wolf? Or if you like kittens, do you go get a tiger? Because that tiger might just kill you, might eat you. That wolf, he might put up with you for a while until he rips your throat out, because they are not your domesticated kittens and your puppies. They are wild animals. Mustangs are, by definition, a wild animal. They have gone back to their base instinct. So you have to deal with them in a different way at first. Now, almost every Mustang I've ever been around still carries that instinct with them. It carries that wildness with them, though, like I said, our kids' lesson horses around here are all Mustangs. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to be a wild horse at one time. Now, saying all that, I've got some Mustangs that I took from folks who either put them in the hospital or made them very... There we are.
There it is. Okay.
Okay, continuing that, I sold a really good mare to this lady because she deserved a wonderful horse. And I took this horse because he and I have a great relationship, and I have worked for a long time to get him through the trauma of some really bad handling before this lady got him, and a bad wreck where he split his head open and had all kinds of physical issues. And I've worked him through that, and he's going to be a wonderful horse, but he is not for the amateur. So understand out there that the ideal of the Mustangs is one thing, but if you've never had any experience with them and you've never worked with horses on a regular basis, they may not be the go-to horse for a lot of folks without some supervision or some help. So, you know, and that's what I'm here for. That's what I know some of the best Mustang trainers in the world. And there's not just me, there's a whole bunch of them. A bunch of them are some young ladies. And I have a friend that I've competed with in the Mustang makeovers with several times, and her daughter, and I have judged both her and her daughter in some Mustang competitions, and her daughter is the future of Mustangs. That girl, I've known her since she was about 14 years old. She's in high school now, and she is just getting these yearlings in, and now she's getting up into Mustang makeovers and other Mustang competitions. And her abilities with those horses, she has such a natural soul with those horses that she can get things done. I said, my God, I hope I never have to compete against this girl. She will wipe me all over the floor. So I look at the future of horses with these kids coming up, and I just go, man, some of these kids are amazing. So keep your eye out for some of these kids coming up.
What's her name?
Oh, I'll let her do that down the road.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't want to embarrass her out there.
Oh, man.
But some of these kids...
Be proud if you said something about her.
Well,
if she knew it was you saying
something.
Okay, so actually on that, I have an excellent question sort of coming to mind. We've talked, Sean and I have talked a lot. I mean, I don't know.
I'm almost sick of him.
Yeah, see?
No, I'm kidding. Excuse me while I drink some water out of my nice pink, manly water bottle.
They are so used to me having pink coffee cups, pink Crocs. Well, give a crap. It's good for me.
I get on Mustangs. I can drink out of a pink water bottle if I want to.
One of the most common comments I get, because I have these pink Crocs that have been bejeweled by these plastic little things that are glue gunned on kind of thing from the girls. And everybody says, boy, you got to be a real man to wear those things.
I'm not that much of a real man myself.
Okay, so one of the questions that I've asked you, and it still goes through my mind, and I think about this all the time. How much is it natural ability to technique or mechanical ability?
Okay.
So that, you already know what I'm talking about.
Yes, and I talk about this all the time. I know some people out there in the, versatility world or, sport horse world or whatever, that they are extremely good at mechanics. They can do this with their hands, do that with their leg, they do that with their weight, but they'd never be able to ride a Mustang. They'd never be able to work with a Mustang because all they are is mechanical. To work with that horse, fusions, and I do everything. I have saddlebreds here, Arabians, so they are so much typically more. But when we talk about training, when I teach, I'm teaching my students first some mechanics. Hand here, stick here, body turns here, eyes go there. Those are mechanics. And that was over time. And mechanics comes that indescribable something that I can't really say what it is.
You generally refer to it as energy.
It's an animal person since I was very young. Animals are drawn to me for some reason. And if you're around here, Graham has noticed, we have a lot of animals between pigs and chickens and sheep and goats and ducks and about 50 horses and a mini mule. we're animal people.
Somebody had a good point. Is this
And-
being recorded?
And
Yes, now.
so I have always had a little something that I've been able to work with troubled animals because they sense that I am not going to hurt them and that I am going to guide them in a direction that will help them in this life with people. Can I help every animal? No, because some have been traumatized beyond the point of, it's not beyond the point of being around people, but working with people. I've worked actually with some horses and animals that have been traumatized by humans to the point that they're not going to be a riding horse for somebody.
Yep.
I was training trying to work with a horse that was used in the Mexican rodeo as a tripping horse, and he was a lovely horse, but he was so traumatized by what people had done to him, roping his legs at a full blast run and jerking his legs out from underneath him. They actually fractured 2 vertebrae in his withers.
Wow.
And he's on YouTube, and I felt he really liked people, but he just could no longer trust them. You could not tie him up fast because any rope on him that held him was a panic situation. He'd throw himself on the ground. But he knew I'd never hurt him. Mm-hmm. But to have a relationship with horses, I think ideally you do have to have a little certain something in you. You can have a relationship with a horse. Hell, I mean, you look at millions of people have relationships with horses, but what kind? Mm-hmm. Some of them are very happy in their relationship with their horses. It may not be the one that I would like to have, mm-hmm. but we work on that. Everybody's different. I'm not saying I'm right and they're wrong or anything, but everybody's different.
So it's like there's a standard that is subjective, but
Oh, yeah.
there's some objectivity to it.
Yeah, and everybody's got their own point of view.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the same way with training. We all have our different points of view.
Yep.
And I mean, we've talked a lot about different training aspects over the last 2 days, and where did I come up with my training techniques, and where did I learn? I learned from everywhere, and that's what I tell people: learn from everywhere, but don't get pigeonholed and stuck. I have a lot of folks here at our barn, and we get folks in that have bought a set of discs and they will not absolutely deviate from what those discs tell them. And I've had conversations with some young folks, and it's the younger folks that really get stuck in that sometime. They've gone out and, bought the set of discs from certain people, some with Australian accents, some that are very popular out there.
Some with American accents.
And they get stuck in that system, not being able to recognize that a different horse needs a different technique. I have taken little pieces over my lifetime, classical work. God, I was in Spain working with classical people. Get some amazing work. That's why I love Baroque horses. I love, Pries, Pura Raza Española, which we over here call Andalusians, which over there they look at you and go, Andalusians are unregistered horse, comes from Andalusia.
Okay.
They go, it's Pura Raza Española. So you learn the hard line from some of these classical people, and they do things differently, and they do some very classical, groundwork. But I don't like putting horses in columns like they do and mm-hmm. whacking them on the legs a little bit more, key-offs and passage and things like that, and levade. I'm not crazy about some of those techniques, but we have these systems that everybody, and I was stuck in there a little bit too. I worked with a guy that has this system, but I learned to modify my work depending on the horses that I was working on. And I do that to this day. I modify. Mm-hmm. Yes, I use a stick. I don't use a stick with a string very often. I can go back to a string, but I figured out a long time ago that I did not have as much refinement with a string, and we've talked about, Graham was really asking me about lead ropes. Why do you have a stick? I can make anything work. I can use a flat web halter if I have to. I can use any piece. I can use a piece of baling twine if I have to. But I have the tools that I use, that I have worked with now and refined my personal techniques that I've gotten great results from, because I did not pigeonhole myself into someone's, plan, their program. Because boy, a different horse will come along and go, you can take those discs and do something with them. Okay.
So on the idea of discs and learning a particular thing, I get some clients that come in and they will say to me, look, I just need some program to do. Because a lot of people, I feel, and I myself have been the same, and when I'm learning new stuff, I feel like I'm like this. I need to kind of work through some steps before I can go out and say, I think I'm going to change step 3 to step 2, and I'm going to make a step 2B and 2A and a half, and oh wait, back on step 1, I think I'm going to have 1A, B, C, D, E. When you modify bits and pieces. So how, for people who are, in Mustangs, not domestics at the moment, if somebody were to consider doing something along those lines, and then in the beginning needed some sort of program, what thoughts do you have about that?
All right.
It's a hard one. Maybe.
For a lot of people out there, if you were just to go and look online and go, okay, I want a disc series on taming Mustangs. Well, guess what? I've been asked to do that for years, and I may do that.
Yeah.
When I get done with my projects, you may start looking for my discs on working with Mustangs, because once I get past the taming process, the gentling process, then I go about guiding that horse, training that horse the same way I train most other horses. But it's that initial work with them. And honestly, there's not as much set in stone. And boy, every Mustang can be a little different.
Yeah.
You can apply a certain amount of pressure to this one, and you can put a lot more pressure on this one over here.
Like my rope flicking.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work.
That's what I was saying. For a Mustang, that may just send them out of the round pen. So I will tell everybody out there, if you are watching this, I say take everything that you can, and if you get stuff from me and you get stuff from them, fine. Put it in a package that works for you, but get a baseline. Get a baseline place to start.
But that's hard.
That's hard.
Some people are told with the baseline, this is the baseline.
Okay.
So now what?
Now, I say there is no substitute for hands-on, in-person guidance.
Yeah.
Because there is nobody on that disc telling you, you're doing that wrong. Your hand's not doing what my hand was doing.
Yeah.
So I say seek out and learn from the best person either in your area or come here to us.
This is the guy.
I'll start you off. And I am actually building, here later this summer, I'm building 2 Mustang taming demonstration pens here at the ranch, that I'm going to be having clinics on taming horses, gentling them, and trying to get through that initial stage.
She's on the internet now. You have to do it.
I'm going to be doing it. Don't you worry.
Give her timeline.
Sometime.
I always see stuff online. I say, oh, geez, now I've said it online.
Yep.
I got to do it. And
As soon as I finish building paddocks and tiling a bathroom and redoing a kitchen, I'll get right on that. Don't worry that.
Along with that 7 discs DVD set.
Yeah, and that whole DVD series.
Actually, it can't even be a DVD. Nowadays, you have to do it available online.
Okay. Well, that might be
People don't
easier.
have DVD players anymore.
Oh, jeez.
right?
I'm so behind.
You can't put a
I've
DVD
never
in your
done
phone.
one of these. I need to get this thing
John's
going.
never done a live stream, so we've been talking tech a little bit. And by the time I leave here, I'm hoping he'll be completely set up.
I'm gonna be set. His channel's gonna have a run for his money. I'm gonna put mine out there and go,
already-
okay, look at this.
Yeah, that'd be awesome because then I'll be going there.
All right, next question.
Next question. Okay, we actually have a few questions on here.
Okay.
It's just insane how much it is in here. Okay, I hope you guys put question in the question because I'm looking for questions. Okay, I don't know. Let's see. Okay, I have a question that says, is the availability or treatment of Mustangs different in Canada in comparison to the States?
I
Now,
can't answer that.
That is something that I was going to talk to you. I think we briefly touched on it because there were a few people that the only reason I had a Mustang in was because the lady had won the raffle of. There were 3 or 4 Canadians that had gone and grabbed some Mustangs and brought them back across the border, did their thing, and then a big group of the women went, their group of friends and stuff went down and did the challenge.
Yep.
And I think they did quite good with it. And then, of course, one horse came back. And we don't get many Mustangs in Canada that I'm aware of. And there was some talk about starting up the Mustang Challenge in Canada. But so I was going to then, actually, so I don't know, he doesn't know.
Well, the BLM is limited on their rules for where these horses go. And I'm not going to get into a whole big diatribe about the BLM. I work with them in a way where I go and get horses for clients or help clients pick them out in the holding facilities. I can't get into a whole bunch of do I agree or disagree or all that. There's a whole that could.
That's my GoPro, don't worry about
Oh, GoPro's making
Dead.
noises. I don't want to get into a whole bunch of political stuff, but the BLM has some rules. And one, if you adopt a BLM Mustang here in the United States, that horse has to remain in the United States for 1 year before it can be transferred out of the country. Because after 1 year, that horse is titled, and then that horse becomes a domestic horse because that title transfers to you. That is your ownership. Then that horse can then transfer. We've got horses going to Europe and we got ones going to Canada. But that horse has to remain in the States for a year. Now, I've had clients who've changed around a little bit, so now that horse is probably going to be staying here in the States. But as far as the Mustangs getting up into Canada, you have to plan and have budget for that horse staying in the States, and I say staying in training. What you don't want to do is get that horse to a trainer and say, okay, I want you to do 3 months, and I'm going to pay you $1,000 a month to train this horse, and then for 9 months that horse sits around somewhere, because that horse will revert back to one and it won't make any sense.
On average, how long would you say it takes for some either gentling or further advanced training to sort of diminish from a Mustang?
Well, for a horse that was gathered in the wild and then brought in, if that horse was not in holding very long, and then you get it to somebody who starts the gentling process, and every horse is different. And I was explaining to Graham, I've got Mustangs here, like Taz, my 2010 Mustang. I rode him 2 weeks to the day from picking him up from the BLM, and he was a deer wild little horse. Okay, and I said I took my time with him. The next year, Rocket, I was on him in 9 days. In 2012, I did 2 horses at the same time, a mare and a gelding. The gelding I rode in 4 days, and he was extremely wild, but in 4 days, I had that horse's mentality, and the mare took 6 weeks. She would not give up her feet. She didn't want to be caught. So what's the difference there? Well, they're both wild horses. The mare was just a ball of brace. And she had actually been in holding 10 months. The gelding had only been in holding for a couple months. And he was a little younger.
Okay.
But the mare ended up coming around, turned into this amazing horse, absolutely beautiful. But it took me 6 weeks to get on that horse. So it's so subjective to say, oh, this is how long it takes to gentle a Mustang. I have had another horse for a client. We walked both of these horses for 2 clients. In fact, you've seen Dylan here. He's my student who does all our kids' riding lessons here. The horse I helped her go pick out 6 years ago and coached her to her first ride, 4 weeks to the day from picking him up as a wild horse. She rides him bareback and bridleless around here and has little tiny kids riding him. You saw that yesterday. And the other horse that I had gotten, and he's on my YouTube, Conager, we walked him off. I helped this lady pick him out. We walked him off, and he was of such a demeanor, I picked up all 4 feet in about 10 minutes. And another 10 minutes, I hopped up, did some, Jeffrey's work with him, hopped up over his back, and was leaning over this horse's back that was just down at Canyon City that day. The second time I worked that horse, I rode him. The 4th time I rode him, I was riding him down a trail, down into a river, over bridges. So
there's really nothing.
There's no baseline for these horses. They're all so different.
But diminishing, so say you get them good, say that looks really good, and then you say, look, off you go into the pasture for 6 months. If you had 100 of these, how many of those would just be lost cases?
100.
All of them.
Every one of them is going to go revert back to being almost as wild as they were when they came out.
What about 3 months?
If I came, let's say 1 month.
Okay,
Let's say you take them after you've done all this work and then you go turn them loose for a month.
Yeah.
Out there.
Yeah.
And not have any contact with them.
Sure.
I'd say more than 50% are going to go, I'll see you later. You'll never catch them in that pasture. And then I'll say the other 50% are all going to go, you know what? I'll think about it. And then they'll probably go, no, I'll see you later. You've got to be very consistent with these horses,
So it's much, because some people, the domestics, they've got their stuff done and they do this and they've done, I haven't ridden my horse in 6 months. Can you tune it up? Is a good way to put it. And they might need some kind of, but usually they're pretty good. You just kind of keep going a little bit more and then within a week or two, it's back to normal. But Mustangs are not that. That's not.
Not right away. Now, Taz and Rocket. Now, Rocket's a little different. Rocket's a little bit more, he's always got that wildness.
Yeah.
And my little guy, Taz, I always joke that he was some little 9-year-old girl's pony in Wyoming who got loose and got gathered up by the BLM.
Yeah.
Because once I got him gentled and got him ridden and got some things done, I was using him as a lesson horse 2 months after gentling.
Yeah.
And then I bought him back from my clients who bought him at the auction after a year. But I was always using him as a lesson horse. And he loved kids.
Yeah.
I think on his 10th ride was, I rode him on his, I think I did his 9th ride, and the instructor for this kids' summer camp came over with 9 or 14, I think it was 14 kids. And here, basically, 4 weeks before, this was a wild horse, and there 14 little kids are brushing him and just handling him. He's just sitting there, oh my God, but I like this. And these kids were from 4 years old to 14.
Yeah.
They loved on him, and he's like kids. He's just said, I like this.
Yeah.
Now, he's only about 14 hands.
Yeah, he's a little guy.
But he's a stocky little sucker, and I tell you, he's worth his weight in gold for kids lesson horse. But when I get on him and people say, you're too big for that horse can carry me all day long up and down mountains, believe me. But he's the one that I'll go and do demos, bridleless riding demos on, and groundwork demos and all this stuff. And when I get on him, he grows about 2 hands and he knows he's got to be a big boy's horse. But when I put a little kid on him on a lead line, he gets into his little dinky trot and his little soft, slow motion lope, and he's a wonderful horse.
For everybody here that is used to the horses that I have 4, and I haven't talked much about my horses yet because I'm too busy listening, to be honest. I have no interest in wasting any time. God. But I have a horse named Luke who, I've mentioned him, obviously. He's my favorite.
Yeah.
He's the guy that I don't have to look at. And for demeanor, you guys would probably compare Taz to Luke, where literally if Sean stands around for just a second, just this amount of time to talk to me, this horse is in his crook of his elbow, like this little baby horse that just can't stand to be away from its mama. And Sean might not admit it, but he's pretty lovey-dovey on this thing. And
Don't overlove your horses. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, right.
And
to listen to him like you listen to me.
yeah.
On that topic.
Don't be kissing on them or hugging on them. It's just a shame that you embarrass them enormously.
Yeah,
And,
poor Taz. You should have seen Taz when Sean did that.
You'll lose your man card if you do that.
Get pink bottles and pink Crocs.
Yeah, pink bottles and walk a pig on a pink harness when they're that big. Yeah.
Carry a purse.
I don't even have a man card anymore. I always say, well, I got to get on a Mustang today, and then that'll give me my man card back.
You guys will see the pig a little later. I love these pigs here. There's 2 pigs, Sweet Pea and Kevin, and they're just the most coolest. We've got about 2,000 questions in here.
Oh my God. Well, let's get some more questions.
Okay. All right. Mustangs are not bred in captivity, are they? Are always from the wild?
Well, see, that's controversial. There are people, and I did a cult starting one time in Kansas City, Kansas, and these people brought domestic-born Mustangs. They were all out of wild stock, and for some bizarre reason, these people were breeding. They called them American Mustangs. Okay, if you're breeding that horse in captivity,
Yep.
that horse is not the same as what I would call, he may be out of Mustang blood,
Yep.
but he is not the wild horse that is out there, that is born in an environment where you have predators and you have survival of the fittest. If you are breeding these horses, number one, why the heck do you go around and breed? And they were breeding a whole bunch of them. And I was like, what in the heck are you breeding these horses for? Is get the ones the BLM are gathering up and give them a home.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a whole controversial thing. Now, on the other hand, there are horses, the Kiger Mustang, which is a very specific line of Mustang. These horses were the original bloodline of horses that came here to the Americas by the Spanish, and I have one, and he's completely different than all my other Mustangs. He's old dun, and most of them are duns or Grolias. Now, that is one of the horses, other than the curly Mustang, that the BLM will adopt out as stallions if you so choose. Because there's a lot of people that want to preserve that special Spanish bloodline. So there's a couple bloodlines out there that people will adopt that horse, and then they will do a breeding program to preserve that Spanish Mustang. Do I agree with it all the time? Well, I'd like to see some of these horses, you know, preserved.
Yeah.
But those horses were wild horses in Spain and Portugal before they came here in the Spanish ships.
Yep.
So they adapted very well to the Americas and created some little pockets where that bloodline was still fairly pure.
Yep.
But if you take a Mustang and you have it in captivity and breed it to another horse, that offspring is not a Mustang. That offspring is, by definition, a domestic horse.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
I believe
hope so.
Okay, another good one. How do you know a Mustang owner / trainer is not someone that should be dealing with Mustangs? Personality, calmness.
You go with your gut.
A good indication is to watch.
Okay. If the person is a jerkwad, and I'm using the polite term, if the person is a total jerkwad to people, he's probably going to be a jerkwad to that horse. If they are a hyper harsh person, loud, then Mustangs don't respond really well to that. The best Mustang trainers I know have a great sense of humor.
Good, yeah.
They're, you know, they like people.
We should tell horse jokes.
We should. I don't know any horse jokes.
I know a couple.
Mostly people jokes. Yeah. But if the person is unpleasant, they're not going to be real good with that horse a lot of times. Now, there's exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
Okay? There are some people that just hate people and love horses, and they're much better with that horse than they are with people. But I'd like a combination of the two, because if you are getting your horse, a Mustang that you're adopting, trained by somebody, you have to be able to work with, communicate with that trainer. And if they're unpleasant, you know, if you kind of pick up and look for the con man attitude too. People who talk too much psychobabble constantly never get anything done with your horse. I know some of them, and there's some people out there paying people to talk psychobabble to them, and they still can't touch the horse 9 months later. That's not acceptable to me. In fact, I've got a horse here that came from somebody like that.
Yeah.
And I touched the horse the first day, had him haltered the fourth. He'd been out to 9 months to somebody, and they never got the horse, but they just sit on their video and talk psychobabble. Go, he's had enough. Look, he looked at me and he walked away. He's going to walk away every doggone day for 9 months. I didn't let him walk away.
Well, then there's a saying that I think applies really well to horses, because they don't understand what you're saying, whereas it's very much trust actions, not words. So people who talk a lot, psychobabble, comparison to those that say, well, I'm just going to get something done here, and something gets done. So a good indication to see if anybody's any good might be, what's your horse like? How does your horse act around you?
Yeah.
Maybe something like that.
If that horse is like when you've got somebody that's working with a Mustang, you know, when I go in to work with them, you know, I really have to find the right kind of center of who I am. Because when I step in there, I have to be the best me I can be. And that's the truth. You have to be the best you can be.
Which is the barometer.
With that horse. That's right.
Right.
And those horses respond to that. They may still be wild, and I will push them past a limit sometime.
Yep.
And this is the thing that I try to get across to people. Some people, oh, you're putting too much pressure, And I go, because I've seen all the people that want to, you know, wave their magic wands and all this stuff, and the horse is just going to magically come to them and blah, blah, blah. And hey, there's an exception to that rule too. Some horses will respond well to that.
Yep.
But there's times when if left to their own devices, Mustangs will avoid you. They will go away. They will stay away. Because if you say, okay, well, you went away because you weren't comfortable, so I'm going to leave you alone. Well, you just taught that horse to go away. That horse that is up here is a perfect example of that.
Yep.
He was told every day for 9 months that it was okay to go away. So guess what he did for 9 months? He went away.
And he was totally cool.
He was totally cool with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he said, well, if you're never going to actually insist that I stand here and let you touch me, then my feet are going to grow real long. His feet were 3.5, 4 inches too long when he got here. And I said, you know what? I got to get this horse handled so I can get him trimmed up.
Yep.
And I had to work hard to get his feet done. I had to do everything because his feet were that much too long. He's starting to break off big chunks. I didn't want his feet splitting.
Yep.
That's a disservice to that horse.
Yeah. It's unfair.
So I went, okay, I'm going to go in and get something done.
Yep.
Now, a lot of these other horses, you know, again, the barometer is, are we still on the watching the, what kind of trainer?
We're on all kinds of things. I'm not
Excuse
sure
me
where
if
we
I
got
go
to.
off on some tangents once in a while.
A little bit.
But if you're choosing trainers, look at the horses they've worked with. Look at the results that they've gotten. Go and meet with those people. I have a client who has 2 Mustangs here who watched my videos for years and said, when I wanted to get a Mustang, I knew it was you that I wanted to work with.
Yep.
Because you communicated, you seem like you like people. And I talked to her for hours on the phone about these things. I gave her all the positives. If you get somebody that sells you pie in the sky and says, oh, I'm going to do this and this and this. First thing I told this lady, every horse is different.
Yep.
I guarantee nothing.
Yep.
I guarantee I'm going to do the very best I can,
Which is pretty good,
with those horses. One of the horses we got in, you look at him, he's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it turned out he had some physical things from being crunched in trailers. And I said, we got to get some chiropractic, some rolfing. I got to get, there's a lot of factors that go into these things, but I will not sell you pie in the sky. Because that's the stuff that, you know, you be careful of.
Well, it leads to a good question that I had, and I'm going to ignore the zillions of questions that are coming through here for a second, because I am always very curious because I do know that you have to deal with both physical and mental with a horse. Obviously, there might be some injuries, there might be something off. Feet is a great one.
Yeah.
Constantly talking about feet on my channel. You gotta have good feet. You don't have bad feet, the horse is gonna be uncomfortable, they're gonna trip, they're not gonna be able to walk properly, they're not gonna carry themselves, so on and so forth. Also, picking up the feet, let alone that it's a healthy thing to do to take care of them, but mentally, when you take those feet away, they must know that it's safe.
Yes.
So when it comes to training and working with horses, it's constantly going through my brain. Is this a physical thing? Is this a mental thing? Or is it a bit of both? Or is it just me? Or all of the above? And
When I get past that initial being able to go in, put my hand on these wild horses, go in, and whether I had the BLM put the halter on, but some of the horses that come to me through sanctuaries or other things that are storefronts for the BLM, some of them they don't have halters on. So I've got to get that horse to where I can get a halter on it. But once I get past that initial stage, then the real work comes, because now he's let me into his zone, into his energy zone, his safety zone. Now I have to start getting him to the point where I can move around his body in that zone. Because that's when they start showing that they're going to trust you. And his feet, I have a checklist in my head by which I get on horses, or I advance with these horses. And when I'm taming a Mustang, one is I've got to be able to walk in and calmly put a halter on that horse. That I don't have to drop my rope on the other side of him every time, pick up my long rope and twist it and get him up and finagle a halter on.
I think domestics are the same, because a lot of them will raise their head up. So used to getting their head up.
Yeah, there's people riding horses that I go, can you never pick up his feet? No, I have the stable person pick up. That horse doesn't trust you.
Nope.
So the feet are directly, and especially in a Mustang, and like I said, Mustangs are instinct on steroids, so the feet on a Mustang are directly connected to their brain when it comes to trust. If anything happens to a Mustang's foot in the wild, he cannot travel to water, to food, escape a predator. So for him to allow what we are predators, we have, if you can't see, we have eyes on the front of our head.
Two of them.
Most
people.
And that makes us a predator.
Unless you're tired.
So if I transfer around that horse, I'm very careful about my body language, typically giving one eye to that horse. But when I ask that horse to give me his most valuable asset, the ability to flee, and they start to give that to me, then I know I've made that that extra step of progress connecting the trust from his foot to his brain. When I can pick up all 4 feet and then trim them without drugging them out, then I have made a huge step in progress.
Yep.
And Hunter, this big Mustang right here, we made the most progress when I got him. I could pick up his feet, but boy, the sound of the nipper was a deal. But I still got it done, and we found a nice little scratchy place on his neck where as long as you scratched his neck, he'd let you do his feet. And I'll use every tool I can get.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? So there are parts of this checklist that I check things off. Feet is like a big number one, especially with Mustangs.
Face, eyes, ears.
Oh, everything.
Mouth.
Everything.
Nose.
You've got to be able to, you know, if you're going to put a balsal, a side pull, anything on, you've got to be able to get things around, or
Even
a halter.
just a halter, yep.
Yeah, a halter. So all of these things, if a horse is avoiding letting you get to a certain part of their body,
You got trouble.
then we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So I say, I've got to let this horse understand that I am not going to hurt him, and I will take it 1 inch, one day at a time. If I can get an inch further this day,
Yep.
I'll get an inch further the next day. If I want it all, if I want to be a McDonald's generation trainer and I want it all at one time, I'm going to set that horse up and myself up for failure. So that's one of the big things I try to tell people. You cannot put a time frame on horses. Though in reality, and this is something that we've talked about a lot as trainers, we have budgets to work within. We have time frames that we try to work within sometimes, but you know, you have to communicate to the clients that there is no set time frame, no set, you know, they better, you know, if you're worried about budget, go to the pet store and get a guinea pig, because they don't eat near as much and they don't cost near as much to do everything on. Horses are not a cheap endeavor.
No.
They're a big giant lump in the ground that you feed money in one end and poop comes out the other
And
end.
you got to clean that stuff
And
up.
then you got to pay somebody to clean that up if you don't want to do it yourself. All right, let's get another question, because I will
Actually-
go on and on all day about Mustang.
Yeah. There's a few questions, luckily, that have kind of come in at the same time. So about the idea of them being born in captivity.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see or feel or know whether or not genetics plays a role in their training despite being born domesticated?
Okay.
Will they be different than, say, I mean, because a lot of breeds, people say, well, Arabians are this way, Thoroughbreds are this way, Quarters are this way, blah, blah, blah. So are Mustangs
Genetics always
wild
play.
genetic? Would
Genetics always plays a
Yeah.
role no matter what. But there are Mustangs that the BLM have that are born in captivity, okay? They're born in those pens, but they're in those pens, they have a brand on them. By definition, those horses are still a Mustang,
Right.
though they were born in a paddock.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten some of the wildest horses I've ever gotten were ones that were born in holding.
In a prison cell.
Basically in a great big paddock.
Yeah.
Okay, some of the wildest horses, most untrusting of people. You know why? Because they see people.
Yeah.
I would much rather have a wild-born horse. But I do have a client with a really nice horse that was born, you know, in holding.
Yeah.
Actually, I have 2 of them. And they're wonderful horses, but they were pretty wild when we got them in. They didn't want to be touched.
So the genetics plays a part.
It's still there, and if they were
It's
with their
still
mother for a little
in there.
while, their mother was communicating to
Tell
them. You see those things over there? Stay the heck away from them.
Those bipedal.
Yeah, those two-eyed bipedal-looking things. Stay away from them. But they will, even if they're born in captivity, they will retain a certain amount of that wild genetics. Their feet will tend to be better. Their bodies, you know, some of them, those survivors, the fittest survivors, are still genetically probably
as you-
superior to your domestic grade horse.
And as you said, easy keepers almost,
A
because
lot of them can stay fat on the color green. You just put some green paper up on their their paddock and they'll stare at it and they'll gain weight.
Get fat.
Yeah.
Okay, good question. I already know the answer to this, but I want to hear it as well. Does Sean work alone with more difficult cases, or would he enlist help on occasions?
I enlist help on occasions.
Yep.
And this is what we did last night. I was working with Hunter, a Mustang that I'm working with, and I'm getting him prepared to do some long lining, because I'm getting him prepared to take a saddle and start being ridden. So I want to start getting it in his head that he already can handle a surcingle.
Yep.
So I want to get him prepared to do some long lining, and I'm going to put a side pull on him and get him giving to some turning and getting him used to me being in that rearward position. Well, last night he wanted to cut me off when I was trying to inch back on my lead rope. So what I did was I told Graham, I said, horse training's not always a one-man deal. So I had Graham get behind him while I was in my driving position off his hip, and we sent him around and got him used to somebody directly behind him. So that was a perfect example of a two-man deal, and by the end of that, I was able to slip behind his hip in a safe position and one rein ground drive him forward.
Yep.
Now, if I'm getting on a Mustang for the first time, I'm typically in there by myself. But if I find that horse is wanting to lock up and maybe not give me forward motion, I always have somebody available to come in and be in the center of that round pen and help me get forward with my stick. Why? Because I am always in the center of that round pen, sending him forward in the round pen, getting forward motion. So he recognizes that position of the person, and then I'm up there just being a passive yet assertive rider.
Yep.
I don't want to put a lot of pressure on that horse. I want that first ride to be, just wonderful.
Yep.
Now, in the old days, I get a walk, trot, and canter every first ride.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, I modify that a little bit. I'm getting older. I don't bounce as good as I used to. But you know what the funny thing is? Never had one of my Mustangs blow up on me the first ride. Never had one of my Mustangs buck on me.
You want to share
the
that secret
first
or what?
Ride. The groundwork,
Yes.
the preparation, the trust.
Yes.
Now, saying that does not mean the next time I get on a Mustang, he's not going to drill me into the ground like well, they could. I didn't have a horse buck on me for 5 years, and I started I don't know how many hundred horses,
Yeah.
and then out of a blue, a horse that should never have bucked one day said, "Holy crap, I'm going to blow up."
Yep.
Luckily, I rode that one out.
Yeah.
So, but it can happen anytime.
Yeah.
But if I do my job and I do my best to prepare, 99.9% of the time, those horses don't blow up because I rely on that feel and that trust.
Yep.
And I don't skip any steps.
And your communication.
I don't build my horse roof first. And everybody's out there is going to go, what in the hell is he talking about?
They've all got southern accents too. Whenever somebody's got a problem with Sean, they're from the south. Just so everybody knows, they're not from Canada.
Because whenever I say they ask a question, because I'm from the south, I always go, "What in the hell?" They do-"
It's good. It's good.
All right, let's work on the next one.
All right.
I don't want to neglect any of you out there, but
Okay. I ended up scrolling down to the bottom, but it's a good question. Has there ever been any Mustangs that you worked with and you thought, man, this thing it's not going where I want it to go. I think it should be left alone. It should be maybe turned back, or in a very, very poor case scenario, this thing should probably be put down or.
none of the ones that I started, none of the Mustangs that I took from being wild, never one of the ones that I had first contact with. The only one that would almost describe that situation was my first Mustang. The old buckskin Mustang mare did not come to me directly from the BLM, came came to me through a rescue after this horse had been bought by a kill buyer, had foaled on his lot that night. She had been stuffed in a local auction. No rescues would touch her, and she was trying to climb out of the pens because whoever adopted that horse never did anything with her. But she was either bred when they got her or bred afterwards. Right. And they sent her to an auction. The kill buyer bought her. She foaled that night. So then he didn't ship her, so their bright idea was to put a bronc rider on her. She wasn't even halter broke. So they roped her, snubbed her, put a bronc rider on her. I'm sure it did not end well. But all they achieved was to almost permanently scar that horse.
Puts them backwards.
Yeah. And that horse taught me that what I thought I used to know was not going to fly with her.
Yep.
Did I get her successfully ridden? Yes, I did. Did I get drilled through the bars of an iron oval arena? Yes, I did. Did I come off a couple times? Yes, I did. Did she tear my saddle apart almost one time? Yes, she did.
But during none of that, you didn't think, oh man, I think that this
I said I went through a different door every time.
Yeah.
And then in the end, I was riding her on television. But then one day I'm riding around the pasture and a branch scratched across my hat, and I went for a nice fast ride. And she went, "Holy moly, you're killing me!" And I'm riding this horse around like it was nothing. This leaf scratched across my hat, and she took off. And did I try the one rein stop? Oh, hell no. This horse had a neck on her like that. There ain't no way you're ever going to bend that head around. So this goes back to a question Graham asked me yesterday. What do you suggest for people that their horse bolts on them? Because I rode some in the movies.
It's a common question.
And I rode in the movies, and guess what they do to get the horse to fall down? No one rein stop.
And lean the wrong way.
And lean inside. And that horse is going to go up and fall on his side every time, because that's when you go bang, and I watched the stuntman break his leg.
Yeah.
So what do I do when a horse bolts? I ride, and I ride fast. I do not stop riding and grab that saddle and go, oh my God, and point my toes. I go, okay, we're going for a ride, and you might be going, holy crap, but you ride and you look for the first turn.
What does that mean?
That horse is going really fast and you're in an arena, he's got a turn at the end. And if you can survive the first turn, and God help you if he tries to go through the end of that arena, because some of them do. And when I'm getting down there, I go, right or left, buddy, right or left.
Do you...
And I reach down and grab that halter or whatever and go, okay, we're going right.
Yeah.
And then they're taking off. And then pretty soon they're saying, oh, he's still with me.
Yeah.
And they go, well,
thanks for sticking with me.
I think I want to slow down now.
Yeah.
And I go, no, let's go.
You'll ask them to go a little further.
And I'll go faster. And they'll go, no, I really want to slow down. I said, no, you got your chance. Let's go, buddy, let's go. Now, your average human being who actually has a brain and a will to live is not going to do that stupid crap. But here's the alternative to that. Horse bolts, you jump off. That horse is going 25 to 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Gravity wins every time. And the people who jump off, they're breaking stuff.
At 30 miles an hour.
At 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So I've learned over the years, I've been on several horses that were bolting. One of them was a big, stocky Mustang that had run off with every single person. And it was thing like that. Well, Rocket, one of my best horses, he got his name Rocket on his second ride, and he's never
Rocket for nothing.
He's never done it again. But he is my go-to horse when I need to go chase down wild horses that got out over in another place, or go chase some cattle that are out on the road or something. He's my horse. That man, he's 14-1, and with a 200-pound person and a 50-pound saddle, that horse can outrun unsaddled, untrained Mustangs. And
It's amazing.
we were jumping 4-foot wide irrigation ditches chasing these horses, and I got them all up where they needed to be in
You
about
need
20
a
minutes.
GoPro just up here.
So yeah, there's some things I do. I tell people, do not do what I do,
Yep.
but that's why I get the minimum wage bucks.
You're not in it for the money.
Yeah. I wish it was the big bucks, but it's the minimum wage bucks.
So essentially, the idea is really that there probably are so very few that you'd just be like, I give up.
If I don't give up too easy,
Yep.
I always will make progress in a horse one way or the other. That tripping horse that I worked with for a rescue, he's at least a very happy pasture pet, because I had to come to the reality that I told the rescue, I could ride this horse. I could get on this horse, but I can't own this horse.
No.
So who are you ever going to adopt this horse out as a riding horse?
Yep.
You're going to waste your money continuing, because honestly, this horse is never going to let an amateur ride him. I can handle what he does.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got up on him out along a river in the middle of a bunch of trees because he hated arenas. That's where they chased him, and he roped him and jerked his feet out as long as he's in the arena. He associated arenas with that trauma. But out when I'd go jogging with him out on a trail, I had a saddle on. I got up on him out along the road, but I didn't have a helmet on, and my other half would kill me if I came riding that horse back to the ring. Calm. I always took him to this little quiet place along the river, and I said, you know, buddy, you and I could do this right here.
Yep.
But they had him fostered out to a permanent home where he was just going to live out his days, and he was only 4 years old.
Yeah. Wow.
Poor guy.
What do you think of the idea of training a horse to be ridden in water?
You can do it. I've done it.
Is it so? It's a good idea.
I had a horse. I used to work at a ranch up in Red Feather, Colorado when I was a teenager.
Yep.
And they'd buy 60 horses from a horse dealer. And I was a long-haired bandana, moccasin wearing crazy kid,
Yep.
taking people out on rides up in the mountains.
Yeah.
And so my foreman go, Chief, I'm part Native American, so everybody calls you Chief when you're a kid.
Okay.
So we got those 60 horses in, start seeing which ones are saddle horses. So I'd take horses, because I was a riding dummy. I was a crash test dummy. And I'd get on horses, and boy, some of them would break in half. And then I'd take them down to an arena that we had built in a riverbed that had real deep sand, and the ones that broke in half, they couldn't break in half as hard, at least it was softer. There was one that could break in half like anything. He didn't care where he was, right up until I got him used to going in water, and I got him down in a lake that we had up there, and I got him chest deep in water, and I was swimming with this horse, and I got up on him bareback in that lake, and he couldn't buck, and I just rubbing that horse and loving on him and telling him this was the thing that was okay.
Yep.
And then I'd slowly ride him up out of the deep water into shallower water, and pretty soon that horse was like, okay.
So you could steer him.
Yeah, I had a halter on. I was
Yep.
like riding him around, and he's going,
So that's
okay.
So it's effective.
I did that 2 or 3 times, and then took him in the arena, and said, okay. And he started trusting me.
Yep.
But does everybody do that? No. Does everybody have a lake available to them? No.
No.
So
We
I
got
don't
lots of lakes.
suggest you go get a bronc horse to go check out that possibility of doing that.
Yeah.
And it may work where he doesn't do it in the lake, and you get him out on the dry ground, he drills your butt in the ground like a pile driver, and puts you 6 feet in the ground like a post.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine that would happen.
Yep.
Okay, a lot of compliments in here. It's really nice.
Don't read the compliments. I won't be humble anymore.
Yeah, we both get that a lot, I'm sure. So thank you, everybody who's saying all the nice things. It's not that I'm not trying to respond to all the really nice things that everybody's saying. I mean, somebody said in here that you and I are their favorite horse trainers.
Why, that's
So,
lovely.
that's not bad, eh? You get to be teamed up with me? That's
Well, the
pretty
only
good.
problem is she only watches 2 horse trainers.
You should watch more horse trainers. You don't know any better. Okay. All right.
She found 2 channels on YouTube.
Yeah.
And
What are you doing? Find some more.
But that's lovely. I really appreciate it. And people that watch me, and make comments on my channel, every now and then I'll get on and read comments, and 99.9% are positive. And it's funny because the horses that I get the goofiest comments on are like, I was training this big Frisian, and because I wear cowboy boots and a flat brim hat, and I'm not wearing, and here's,
You gotta get some spandex on, man.
you know what, I've got a pair
of spandex?
riding breeches, and I've got my paddock boots and half chaps in the house, and I have ridden
47.
horses in a dressage saddle, believe me. And I help a lot of dressage riders with the horsemanship after the horses start trying to buck them off. But I was training this Frisian who is an amazing horse, and I'm working with him in my techniques because he was running everybody over. He'd never been ridden, and he was running his owner over, and I'm doing all this stuff. And they're watching the first video where I'm using my stick and my flag, and this horse wants to just drive his shoulder right through him, and I'm saying, no, young man, give me your shoulder, and work him back and forth, and get me his attention, and start balancing that horse. And they see that, and I tell people, horse training is not always this unicorn-based training procedures in which everything is bluebirds singing and unicorns are rainbows
Coming out of their butt.
and sometimes those horses don't give a crap about that, and they try to run you over. And my job is to get them to understand. But I use my bag in a way that I create energy without having to whack these horses all the time.
Yep.
But I get these goofy comments from people, and I just go, you know what? They're going, oh, don't train him like a warm blood. They're cold bloods, and they're supposed to be. And I tell people, don't pigeonhole the horse. If we pigeonholed Frisians, they'd only be on the end of a carriage in Europe for some king and queen, because that's all they ever were. This horse turned out to be an amazing horse. So I tell people, watch the 4th video, watch the 5th video, watch when I've got him on the long lines, and this horse is just balanced up and underneath himself. And I did a 4-month start on him. He got bought, went to Wisconsin. The older lady that bought him sent him out to her dressage trainer, and this lady called me and said, I wanted to tell you something. My dressage trainer, who does national shows, when she got DeRossi in, he was 5 years old, she goes, this is the most well-mannered, well-trained 5-year-old just started horse I've ever had.
Yep.
And that lady called me and told me that, and I said, that's worth all the compliments or negative comments in the world to me.
So on that, actually, and I think that's great. I've already heard this story, so Sean's telling the story. I'm hearing it again. And again, I feel the exact same way. Whenever I, too, get something that comes in and somebody said, man, I can't believe what you did with that thing. I can't, everybody else, and, it took 2-3 months and they couldn't do blah, blah, blah. And I might have got it done in a couple of weeks or something. And they say, I just can't believe that you are able. And you get that respectful and insightful comment. It's a compliment, but it's insightful. It's well thought out. You can't help but think, I really appreciate that.
Well, and what a lot of people don't realize, like, I know I don't go into my videos with a script. I never have anything scripted out, and I don't, when I'm going in to work with these horses, I might have a general idea of what I'm going to do. But that horse helps me modify everything I do with that horse. So when I'm in there, I try to explain what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, where I'm looking, what I'm looking for, and I don't have a script.
You should watch my channel. Yeah.
And I should.
We do a lot of the same things, and everybody here is already going to be thinking, yeah, that sounds about right. Because you can't go into training scripted, even if you're not on YouTube. You don't walk into a session with a horse and think, well, we're doing this, and this, and then we're leaving. Because likely you might have started, and then you thought, nope, I guess we're doing something totally different today.
Well, yeah, that horse dictates what you're going to do. And I may dial up or dial down my expectations depending on, what's happening with that horse.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes when I'm going to push that horse a little more, and sometimes when I'm just going to ease off and start getting simple things that horse can accomplish that day and say, you know what? Good boy, good girl, and move on. And say, I'll come back tomorrow and see if you're in a better place. Not push that horse until their brain sizzles and you can't get anywhere at all.
Now, these comments, I got to interject because I know what you're saying. It's a relatively kind of common idea. Don't push a horse too hard and stuff like that. But to sit down with Sean for the amount of time that I have so far, and it has even taken me a while to go, oh, I know what you're actually trying to say, because Sean's on a completely different level, because all he does is work with, steroid injected horses. If you'd call them that, not that there are any steroids, but Mustangs are a totally different. So when he says, well, I don't want to fry their brain, it might be just going like that. Well, anything more would fry their brain. And you'd be like, well, I better get out of here before I get any more worse.
Yeah.
And that is not the case of dealing with domestics or more bred in captivity and handled a lot and used to good, positive, in general, just, well, my food's here, my water's here, somebody's going to take care of my feet and brush me and all that kind of good stuff. Mustangs are like, get the heck away from me, because I want nothing to do
and what
with it.
I was talking with Graham yesterday about was from the time you walked from over there to that horse, I had him be aware of how he was walking up to this Mustang. Because what we take for general or granted in general with domestic horses who don't react like that,
Yeah.
just a body language change really affects a wild horse, because your body language to them is everything. That's basically how they communicate.
Yep.
Is through body language.
Yep.
And body position. Everything they do is a body position communication to other horses, or reception from, say, a predator out there. They're going, ooh, I see this predator approaching, and how it's, or boldly coming, or a stallion coming in, puffing up at them.
Straight
and
up.
they go, oh,
Yep.
Might
be a challenge.
So everything's either a challenge or or an invitation.
Yes.
So we talk a lot about that.
But that's nothing that you guys see on my channel with my horses, where, they're, because I do a lot of horse observation stuff. I'm just constantly watching. But I did one walk up with Sean, and I might as well have my tail between my legs thinking, what the... I missed this, and this, and it is a different world. It is a different world, and it's
if you're approaching a horse, it's a difference between having your hand out like that and having your hand out like this, how your shoulders dropped, giving one eye to a horse. If you walk up like this, my hat, and this was, I explained it to Graham yesterday, working with, why do I wear these hats? Because this hat's a tool. I drop my hat brim right there, and I can see that horse's whole body, but he can't see my two eyes looking at him. I can tilt my hat that way. Why don't I wear cowboy hats like this? One, my ears don't fry off when I'm outside. Two,
it's hot here.
When I'm working a horse in a round pen or on a lead rope, I can dip my hat to that position and still see how his feet are working, see the posture of his body, and still look forward or look at him, and he doesn't feel threatened by my eyes, because eyes are everything with a Mustang. So you don't want to take for granted that they're just going to accept what you're doing.
Yep.
You've got to be aware of what you're doing all the time. Because you'll go,
Hyper-aware.
why is that horse jumping around?
When did,
Because I told him to.
at what point do you think that you found that your hyper awareness became the norm? Because it's your hyper awareness is more than what I thought my hyper awareness was. I thought I was really hyper aware of horses. I thought I'm okay. I think I've got some pretty good ideas.
Boy, that's one of those
But-
things that just comes with experience and time.
But was there any point? Because I know that when I worked with that one Mustang, there was a point where I thought, oh wow, okay, hang on, no, I gotta completely switch my thought process, my approach, and even still, I being here, I feel as dull as a used pencil in math class kind of thing, and it just
Don't sell yourself short.
no,
man.
it is so different. You guys have no idea. Even when he's explaining right now, his shoulder, his elbow, his hand and stuff like that, and his eye and all that, you can't get that on video. You even sitting here, unless, so we ought to get a Mustang or something. Maybe not right now, but maybe tomorrow or something. But it is a feeling. It comes across, and Sean knows when I'm off. I might be mechanically doing what he's doing, and I am mechanically sort of
Yeah.
doing what he's doing. But my feel isn't there yet, partially because I'm being watched a little. I think that if I could tune you out, I might do better. But that's all of that hyper awareness.
and that is a student response.
Yeah.
Because almost every student
Yeah.
who's being watched
Yeah.
by somebody
Yes.
wants to do right,
Yep.
and that usually makes them do wrong.
Yeah.
Because they're being so self-aware. Oh, if I, well, but
Yeah. He's watching. He's gonna say something. He's gonna say, "Oh, I've guaranteed us." He's gonna. Oh, and there he said something.
Okay, but
So I
see,
think
here's
when I'm
the
listening-
thing as students, I want everybody to know. If your instructor does not say anything, go get a new instructor.
Yeah.
If your instructor does not support you, go get a new instructor. Because
Yeah.
you're not there to just magically absorb everything.
No.
You're there to learn. And if your instructor says, okay, you see how you just walked into that horse? I'm going to give you the first 3 points of what you can change to make that experience for that horse much better. Don't walk in staring at him. Don't walk straight at him. Your buttons or your zipper, or like I tell the kids, pretend you're Iron Man and you got a beam of light coming out of your chest. Wherever that beam of light's going is where your energy goes, and that energy means direction of travel. Back up, relax, point your beam down. So everything has an effect on a horse. So if, as an instructor, I can support my student, then that student gets better. If you got somebody sitting around going, yeah, okay, do this. Okay, do that.
Good job.
And you don't get any, okay, thanks, give me my check. That doesn't work for you, me, or anybody else. You know?
Your hyper awareness has made me hyper aware of me, and then in turn.
I am an observer.
Yeah, but
I observe the horses, I observe the students, but then I have to teach the mechanics. So the mechanics,
Which
be
we
in this
talked about
position,
how to do.
where's our quadrant that we're working in, where's our pressure applied, how is our hand, how much energy do we have on the lead rope, I got to teach that and then build the feel over time. And the horse will start showing the student when the feel is getting better, because that horse is going to do things in a more relaxed manner,
Yep.
in a more free-flowing manner.
Yep.
If the horse is always doing, okay, the mechanics may be there, but the feel's not there yet. That's
Yep.
something that has to build in time. And just get out of the Starbucks mentality. I want coffee. I'm going through the drive-up. I got coffee. Boom. Horses ain't coffee. They're not a hamburger. They're not this instantaneous add water will get result type thing. Sometimes they give it to you, and sometimes they make you work like a dog for it.
Yep.
So that's what I look at.
Yep.
What does it take? Both student and horse. You have to give them the time to work and absorb. The horse, for me, always absorbs quicker than the human. Why? Because you guys get in your head too much. You think too damn much.
He's not talking to me at all.
Him, and I've got a couple students, young ladies in their teens who are National Honor Society, and I tell both of them, you're too darn smart for your own good. You get up there and you think too much, start feeling. Okay? That's one of the things that we have to do.
Okay.
Feel what you're doing. Understand the mechanics, but feel what we're doing. And on that note, I'm going to take a 2-minute break. You
Very
take
good.
over for me.
Sure,
I'm going to get some more water.
Being here, being directly in front of Sean, working with Mustangs in person, he's got a variety of them, obviously. Plenty that have been worked a decent amount, and then here and there you get some that are a little bit more wild. And I agree with him. Everything that he said about that, there's always that wild in them. And some people look for that. And I am 100% on board with the idea that the mirror that sort of gets put up. And even when Sean's working, and you can see the horse react to what he's doing, it is just, how to explain it? As he kind of puts it, if you end up micromanaging what your horse is doing, that micromanagement becomes too much. And if you macromanagement, it is overwhelming. And that's hard to explain. So I think I'll have a little think about it, and I'll probably do a little talk when I get home, trying to absorb. I've got probably 5 or 6 hours of video so far that I have to somehow summarize and edit and put together and see what I can put out to help talk about horses more, because that's all I ever do, I think. So, does Sean do private lessons? Yes, he does. In fact, he's trying to do, him and I have talked about the difference between doing clinics, groups, private lessons, and even in myself, I feel that when I'm doing one-on-ones, it is so much better for both person and horse, because you can really concentrate on what you're seeing. It is very hard to, and I don't know how some, and I don't think some of them do it, but it is very difficult to, multitask. You're not even multitasking. You're going from one task to another, to another, to another, to another. And that's not how you train horses anyways. You don't work with a horse saying, well, I guess I'll just sort of pay attention to you a little and then not pay attention, then pay attention a little and not. And so when it comes to student, teacher, horse relationship, I think that it should be the same way as well. And I think he's feeling the same thing, that if you're one-on-one, that the effectiveness is far superior. And you'll actually probably get more done in less time. So yes, Sean does do private lessons. Give him a shout, if you're serious. I think I know how Sean's going to answer this next particular one about whether or not a particular breed should be treated a particular way. In fact, he's already kind of talked about it, so I don't know if I want to bug him. He's coming back in soon here. But I don't think that a particular breed should be treated in a particular way. I think horses are horses. By definition, the breed is going to have different traits and attributes that are going to make them good or not so good at some things. Mentally, they will be a little bit different. And so there are some accommodations to be made, but for the most part, I think that my opinion is that every horse should be treated as a horse, totally independent of breed. Here comes the man now. We'll ask him as well, see if it's anything close to mine. On a side weird note, Sean and I seem to have an awful lot in common with food. He keeps copying everything that I'm eating, and I just think, well, he's got good taste, so no harm there. No
I
downside
tell you
there.
what, I let him make his own choices, and
Happens to be the same
just
as
happens
yours.
to be the same thing I eat.
Question, good one. I don't know. You've already kind of answered this. Do Mustangs or Arabians or some kind of breed of horse, do you find that you ever have to treat them as that breed?
Okay, here's my greatest answer for that.
Because it happens a lot, right?
Arabians and Mustangs are very close in one thing. They are typically smarter than humans
I agree
on
with
a
that,
regular
100%.
basis.
100%.
This is why a lot of humans do not like Arabians, because that horse is already smarter than them.
by definition already.
And humans tend to like a dumber horse.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Arabians
I do too.
because,
Sadly.
we can kind of communicate, in a good way. And Arabians, they kind of started out as a wild horse in Africa.
Yep.
So their mentality is that it's a survival, it's being a sharp animal.
Yep.
And Mustangs are smarter than the average human too, and that's why they won't put up with
Crap.
silly stuff.
Yep.
They get really offended.
Yep.
And even when you get a good Mustang tamed down and handled well, if somebody comes along and does some really stupid stuff to that horse, he's going to take it really personal for a while, and it's going to take a long time to get that horse past that again.
Yes.
To bring them back up.
Yep.
Where, we used to have a saying years ago about, you can get away with murder with the average gelding, domestic gelding. Mares give you about 3 times to get things right. Stallions,
Geldings are dumb.
stallions, you have to have everything right every time you work with them,
Yep.
because they won't put up with abuse and they won't put up with stupidity.
Yep.
So I was training stallions early on, and we had some wonderful Morgan stallions, and I'd say out of all the stallions I've ever worked with, the Morgan's temperament was always a little bit more even keel. Now everything changes, breeding season, blah blah blah, but Arabian stallions, now you better be on top of your game.
Mm-hmm. Like a Mustang.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Arabian stallion will chew you up and spit you out if you don't watch out. And I mean almost literally.
They're fast.
And they're quick.
Arabians, I've mentioned I have that Arabian that I got.
Yeah.
And everybody loves her. She's probably the most favorite horse on my channel because she is so expressive and smart.
Well, and on that note,
cute.
like I've got an Arabian that's been here for a month of training
Yep.
that had not been ridden for 3 years. And she was basically by herself in a pen. And her owner had a series of bad car accidents, not her fault, but I told her I'm never going to get in a car with her because she's been hit 6 times.
Bad luck.
In 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I went, I ain't never driving anywhere near you. But her horse kind of was isolated.
Yeah.
And this Arabian mare, very lovely horse, but she has taken it very personal that nobody really did much with her in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So my first month was trying to get this horse, acclimated to my place, calm down, and start paying attention to me. And she's been difficult, but I've been working in increments.
Yep.
And now I've put a saddle on her, and she's good about it, and I'm about ready to get on her, but I told her on her, I am not getting on that horse till I know that horse is with me.
Yep.
So when we talk about breeds, that horse especially, I have to make sure she's with me before I get on, because she could just arbitrarily blow up. She hadn't been ridden in 3 years, so she could arbitrarily blow up just for the sake of it, and then where am I? Now I got a horse that wants to blow up.
Yep.
So I got to get her brain and convince her, listen, nothing's happening to you.
Yep.
And now you're getting the attention that you craved for all that time.
Yep.
So, you know, I do deal with Arabs a little different
Yep.
than I might some other horses.
But to summarize that, then maybe it would be sort of worded as there are accommodations within the training process, but the process is relatively the same per breed. Or would you
Yes,
say
I
that-
have a baseline of technique that I use for all of the horses, and then I modify things for whoever I'm working with.
Yeah, but overall, because I kind of feel that it's mostly the same, but all of my horses are completely different. I have an Oldenburg Draft, which is just the best horse on the planet practically. She'll go anywhere with you. You don't have to put a rope on her or nothing. You're like, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
But you do that with the Arabian, she's like, are you sure? Oh yeah, I'm sure. Come on, trust me. It's okay. No, are you really sure? No, you're good. Trust, just come on. You know, so I got to do a little bit more of
No,
that.
they make you work.
So there's accommodations within the process of doing it where you might have to do a little more, adjust that. But overall, I think it's around about the same stuff.
Yeah.
I think.
All right, let's. I don't want all these folks to miss out. We
No
got to
way.
call it a day sooner or later. There's
Yeah.
more stuff to do
We've
around
got
here.
piles to do. Somebody was asking if you do private lessons. I said yes.
Absolutely.
In fact, I said that it is actually probably a preference because one-on-one is usually more, I find it more effective. And because
Well-
when you're training a horse, you don't train them and look away and train them and look away like
Well-
you have to do it.
Well, I have also modified my clinics now, because I used to do group clinics, and it's very difficult because everybody's got their different issues, and their horses have their different issues. So I've modified my clinics now to be, okay, 10 people can come, everybody can watch, but I'm doing an individual lesson with each person. We might do a morning session, then we'll do an afternoon session.
Yep.
So I can usually work with each person twice in that day, but
Yep.
everybody gets to observe each of these lessons.
Yep.
Now, I do my lessons here individually. I don't hardly ever do a group lesson.
Yep.
Now, sometimes if you had a group of people come and we want to start working on the basics of groundwork, well, I can do demo of the basics of groundwork and then get one at a time in there.
Yeah.
But, you know, I find that the personal one-on-one is the best way to go.
Outside of Mustangs, do you have a favorite? Somebody was asking, what do you think of quarter horses?
Oh, had worked with quarter horses. I love them. I love all horses. Let's put it like that. I love all horses.
Yeah.
Now, if I had to choose a domestic horse that I prefer, then I'm going to go with, you know, something like what I rode in Spain, either a Lusitano or an Andalusian, because I love Baroque horses. I love the feeling of that impulsion up, you know, that elevation, and getting those horses up underneath me, and the balance that I can have on a truly Baroque horse.
Yep.
Because I do a lot of Gorocha work, and I do a lot of different things, and I just love the feeling of lightness in my fingertips on that rein, and me just centered on that horse, and being able to balance that horse and do things. And there's a lot of horses out there you can't do that with because their genetics they got too long of a back, their neck's too long, you know, they're a big jumper. I'm not going to get that same feeling sometimes.
Yep.
Although I've gotten some warm bloods that, boy, you get them right balanced and it is an amazing feeling. But I prefer like the mentality, the look and the feel of like a Prix, you know, the Pura Raza Española.
An interesting question. I'm not sure if I've heard this story yet, but so I'll ask. Somebody says, what's the most frustrating or complicated horse or situation you've dealt with, and how did you handle it? something that comes to
The
mind.
typical, okay, I can only answer that generally because I don't want to get in specifics. But
Yep.
here's the most frustrating thing to me as both a horseman and a trainer. When I'm solving an issue with a horse and the owner doesn't want to listen to me about how to continue solving the issue with the horse. They want me to solve an issue, and then they don't want to change or modify their behavior to continue that with the horse.
This actually matches a question I just found that I forgot about. In your opinion, are the people that would be unsuited dealing with Mustangs, or probably any horse? I think that would
Absolutely, there's people that are unsuited for Mustangs. I tell people there's people. I said, Mustangs aren't for you.
Yeah.
If you are a supremely hyperactive person, you're a nervous, tight energy person, then you don't need to be around a Mustang, because the animals or the creatures that carry that kind of energy are predators,
Fair enough, yeah.
and they pick up that energy from 100 yards away.
What about a cat? Cat's pretty quiet.
Yeah, but when they spring, it's that spring energy.
Yeah.
It's that.
Creeping up, we talked about.
Yeah,
Don't creep
I
up.
said don't sneak up on your horse.
Yeah.
A lot of people think going slow is the way to go to. I said no. I flow into my horse, but with the right body position. There's a time you can slow down, but don't creep up on your horse, man. That sucker will go, why are you sneaking up on me? That's like a cat.
So frustrating. I agree that you're trying to get somebody to maybe try something new, and they're like, I don't want to do that, and that's
Well, they don't want to they've got a problem with a horse that they created most of the time, and then they don't want to modify their behavior
that's hard.
to help solve the problem. And I'm going, why is the horse here then? If you don't want to help solve your problem,
Yeah.
or they don't want to come and work with me with the horse so I can show them how to solve the problem,
Yeah.
then what the heck are you here for?
Yeah, it's
Why are you wasting your time, my time?
Would you say you have good diplomacy skills?
I try, but I do get to a point where I go, listen, this isn't going to work.
I was talking to my vet. I'm not sure if I told you this story. I think I did. But I was talking to my vet, and he says he's hiring some people. And I said, oh, you're hiring people? And he says, yeah. He says, and a lot of people come in and they say, oh, I really love horses. And he says, yeah, that's good, but do you like people?
Absolutely. Now, we've talked about this,
Right.
and we'll brush on that. What does it take to be, an overall good horseman, good trainer, clinician / whatever? Because I've worked around a lot of the big name people out there. I've worked with them. I've observed also. And a lot of people you'll see in these clinicians, you'll see people just insulting people, degrading people in front of other people, and just being overall like, hey, I'm here, you have to bow down and honor me. Everything I say is gold. You don't know crapola. Oh, the world is all your fault. And I don't prescribe to that, because I love horses. I love working with horses. But this is something I was telling Graham before. I learned a long time ago that every horse that comes to me has a human attached. Every horse that comes to me has a concerned person, a human who says, I need help.
Help. Yep. Help.
And if I can't help that horse and that human, then I'm doing a disservice to the horse.
Yep.
By being an insulting, rude, obnoxious person. Now, I have no problem helping people work through emotional issues and things like that. I do it all the time. And if you cry and shed a tear, I get 10 extra points for each tear. I put it in my book of tears. I get a trophy at the end of the year and a small check.
Yep.
That's okay. I'm willing to do it for my trophy.
Yeah.
You guys know I'm kidding, right? But
to be sensitive is very important.
you have to be sensitive to the people.
Yep.
but I will not play into their insecurities.
Fair enough, yeah.
So there is a time that I have to be calm and assertive with the horse, and there is a time that I have to be calm and assertive with the person to help them get past. I will not play into all these insecurities. I can try to help them identify and work through the issues. But if nobody wants to listen to me, don't come to me.
Yep.
Keep doing what you're doing. Go to the hospital.
Which plenty do.
Sell your horse to somebody who cares. Because if you don't want to change your way of doing things for that horse, there's no reason to keep being with a horse. And now here's the other reality of that. Sometimes people hang on to a horse that is absolutely wrong for them because their personalities and their abilities will never match that horse's personality. Some people buy a horse way over their abilities.
Yep.
And that horse goes, "You can barely ride. Why are you buying me?"
Well, there's a saying out there that a lot of people would like a push-button horse. And the counter to that is you go ahead and buy yourself a push-button horse, but don't worry, pretty soon you'll bring it down to your level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know the buttons to push,
Yeah. You just
now
hope
without blowing my horn,
Sean never does that.
which
He's
is the
superbly
precursor to blowing my horn,
modest. Modest man.
is I get horses in sometime, my clients will go, "My horse can't do this, my horse won't do that, it can't do this." And I will work with the horse or get on the horse and have it doing things that these people had no idea that this horse could do.
Yep.
And my answer to them then is, "So what do you think the problem is?"
Right. It's
And
an
they
easy
go,
answer.
and the bells go off and go ding, ding, ding.
Yep.
I guess I need to learn what you're doing so
Yep.
I can get the same thing out of my horse that you're getting. And that is a very difficult thing for a lot of people emotionally to actually face.
Well, they have to put their pride off to the side. For
And that's why Mustangs hold that mirror up,
Yes.
and a good trainer sometimes has to hold a mirror up to you and go, "Okay, here, you want to know the problem?
Bam.
Bam, there's the problem."
There it is.
And that's difficult for people.
That's hard.
They
That's
go,
really hard.
"But my grandpa taught me to," oh, there I go again. I'm going to be Canadian for a minute. Hey, my grandpa.
You can't do
I
Canadian.
cannot do
See,
Canadian.
you have to do it Southern.
All right.
Sucks to be
I'll
you.
just be Southern then.
No, Canadians are cool. That's
My
fine.
grandpa taught me how to ride.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. Your grandpa shouldn't have been riding. He shouldn't have taught you how to ride.
Yes. Yeah.
Though I know some grandpas that were amazing horsemen that never had the technology to get it out there. That's how Tom
Yeah.
Dorrance and Ray Hunt, books and
Videos?
little movie
Yeah,
videos and everything, when they were able to start getting stuff out there that they had learned from people and they'd started modifying
Yep.
and they were able to get it out to the masses, that's how things started to change. Now, Tom Dorrance liked people a little bit more. Ray Hunt didn't like people worth a crap.
Yep.
And that was a good example of someone who was amazing with horses, but maybe not as good with people as if we thought about how he could have been.
Yep.
Could he have helped more horses by being better with the people? Because I know personally 5 or 10 people in this local area say, "I rode with Ray. I'd never ride with him again. I mean, I wanted to leave after the first hour. He was just so rude and obnoxious." Well, maybe it was when he was older and just a little crabby.
Yeah.
But, he could do amazing stuff with horses, but he may not have had the communication skills to work with the people as well.
Yeah.
And that's like the difference between some of the people now. Some people are great communicators.
Yep.
And they're able to get their training across,
Yep.
and some of them are great communicators, but their ego gets in their way, and then they change from what they used to be.
Yep.
So please don't make me famous, because I don't want to have my ego get in the way and destroy my horse work. Because I've ridden with a lot of guys that I watched that when they were younger, their horse work was amazing, and now their horse work is horrible because their ego, they get a horse and their ego takes over and says, my ego now says, I got to do this with this horse.
Yeah. You've never experienced that.
I've seen it a few times.
It's hard.
And I've experienced it. I've said, well, my pride makes me do something I shouldn't, that my voice was telling me not to do.
Maybe don't do this.
And you get hurt that way.
Yeah.
So try not to get hurt. As I say, don't do what I do all the time. You know, I always have a disclaimer. I don't always do things I want other people to do. Even Graham asked me, well, with that big bucking horse toothless on your, you got in that fairly narrow pen, isn't that dangerous? Yes, it's dangerous. He was a big horse.
You're lucky he didn't get cow kicked on his way by. He just kind of hits his way by.
But
I see. You didn't.
Done that a whole bunch.
Yeah.
And I have comments. Oh, that's too small a pin. Well, it's what I had to work with.
Yes. Yeah.
Nobody at the rescue could handle this horse. It's what I had to work with.
And he came out in the end riding.
Second time I worked with that horse, I had him haltered. I had him leading.
Yep.
And in the end, he's now owned by a wonderful lady who rides him in the Weld County Sheriff's Posse, and she sent me video of him standing there looking at night with a helicopter coming in and landing. Well, if you look at my first ride on my channel with Toothless, I did my first ride in a 50-mile-an-hour wind with and it was like the apocalypse happened right after I got on his back. Wind started blowing. Fire trucks were driving by my old place, honking.
Yeah, I saw that.
All that stuff. And I went, well, if he didn't blow up on all this, I think it's time to call it a day. You know?
Yeah, if you guys check out Sean's channel, and later on when I edit the description of this video, I'll put it in the link below. Or in the description below, the link to get there if you can't find it, Sean Davies, Colorado Reinsman. But he's got a series on Toothless. I don't think you put Toothless in the beginning video, though, and it was...
No, it was bucking stock rescue.
Yeah, bucking stock.
Because he didn't have a name of Toothless.
No,
and everybody goes, was he really toothless? No, he was a 4-year-old with a bucking brand on him that I got called... by a rescue that I'd worked with a lot, and they said, Sean, and I said, you never call me unless it's a really bad case. She goes, there's this big, black, beautiful horse out on the kill lot, but he's got a bucking brand on him. And I said, how many brands does he have on him? Because if he's got more than one, he got sold to different rough stock guys, means he was a professional athlete in the rodeo, and his whole purpose of living was drilling cowboys into the ground. I said, how many brands does he have? Just one. And she goes, but he's untouchable. She goes, but he's very curious. I said, well, he was as wild as a Mustang, and I treated him like a Mustang. I had my pole, I got my long rope over him and got him given to me, and by the end of it, I could have had him altered the first day, but an apocalyptic hailstorm came in out there at their place, and it's 60 miles away from me, so I've had questions. Why did you put so much pressure on that horse? Because it was 60 miles away from me, and I had to go there and get as much work done in a short amount of time as I could. The second time I went, boom, I got him handled pretty quick and a halter on him pretty quick and starting to lead him. And he was rearing up and all this stuff, but by the end of it, I didn't care. I was leading him around. And then I got him to my place and started working him. And I was riding that horse down a trail and doing all kinds of stuff with him. And he's a sweetheart. And the lady who adopted him in the end has a little girl. She put an English saddle on him and put her little girl up. And
he's a big boy, too.
Oh, he's a big old monster, and I'm glad he never got stupid, because he would have been riding a tornado if he had. I'd watched him playing out in the pasture, running and bucking, and he's like rear end going that way and front end going that way, and boy, all that torque right in the middle, you're going in 5 different places. And I've ridden some funky horses, but I'm not a bronc rider.
2 questions.
Okay.
that are Mustang. We're looking for Mustang related questions. So anybody who's asked a question is Mustang related. I'm probably not going to get to it, so don't take
Oh, we
offense.
can answer a couple.
Well, we'll see.
All right.
When working with Mustangs, it's a real good question in regards to not working with them too. But in regards to Mustangs, there's a few people that would like to know about bits versus no bits. Say side pull, halter, or bosal, hackamore,
Yeah.
or snaffle, curb, whatever kind of bits. What are your thoughts around working with Mustangs? And
I get this.
headstall
I
mounted
get
piece?
this thing all the time where if I'm riding a horse in a bit, people go, "I don't know why you're doing that. Yeah, that's abuse, riding a horse in a bit."
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, listen, I don't train all these horses specifically for me, right? There are people that want to ride in a snaffle bit,
Yep.
and I train for those people.
Yes.
Because they may not know the mechanics of a balsal.
Yep.
Now, I had a lady with a big spotted draft horse here that she had a beautiful thing, and she weaves them herself as well as the girths, and she'd woven this headstall that was basically a side pull, but her big mare was just pushing through it.
Yep.
And I got her to order a draft size balsal.
Yep.
And she sent me a message, and she comes every week for lessons, and she sent me a message just yesterday and goes, "Oh my God, Indy and I just had a wonderful ride because she's come and worked with me, and I've taught her the mechanics of a balsal and the
Yes.
feel of a balsal
Yep.
for that, because she didn't want to put a bit in the mouth." Okay, well, I trained that horse for that customer using a balsal.
Yep.
Now, I ride a lot of horses,
Yep.
and I start them off in like sometimes a halter. Now, sometimes I use a little side pole that I wrap. A lot of these side poles have rawhide or rope
Twine.
on them, and I'm wrapping them with vet wrap or tape
Yep.
or something so it doesn't wear on these horses' nose.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of people, I go, "I'm never going to use a bit. I use a side pull," and I look at their horse's nose, and he's missing all the skin on his nose, and he's got a scar. He's got a hard callus under his nose
Constantly
because
doing
they're yanking on his face with a side pull.
Yep.
So you're not being any kinder to a horse if you're yanking on that kind of.
I agree.
And if your horse is running through, there's these other kind of leather side pulls that cross. And if your horse is running through that and you got no,
The ones that
and,
squeeze
and
down?
then they pull and that squeezes their nose, and then your
squishes
horse
down.
drops their nose to the ground and dumps them in the ground. I'm going, is that really sensible?
No.
So I go back to the old application. Your tools are only as good as the hands that are on them.
Yes.
Okay? I can pick up a
That's it,
spade
though.
bit.
Some tools are really mean.
Yeah. I can pick up a classical spade bit,
Yep.
like a high-level reining spade
Yep,
bit,
yep.
and never move my hand.
Yep.
But you pull that thing out of the mouth, and it looks like some medieval torture
It
device.
does. Yep.
Okay? And there's people that sharpen the points on that spade once in a while, and I go, well, that's a idiotic thing to do. But I can hold that thing there because I'm not riding with my hands. I'm riding with my seat.
Yes. Yep.
I'm riding with my body, my eyes, my legs, and my hands. When I'm in a snaffle bit, I tell people, you let me know when you see me do something.
Yep.
Now, when I'm training a horse, I may be picking up that rein and moving my hands. Half the time when I'm training a horse, you'll see me off the side of a saddle and I'm working shoulders and I'm balancing that horse and teaching it how to be a riding horse. Because a lot of people are putting stuff in their mouth trying to ride a horse like a trained riding horse by overutilizing their hands and abusing the tool that's in that horse's mouth.
Okay.
So I say, if you cannot ride with a halter, don't go putting a snaffle bit in their mouth. If you can't softly work a horse with a halter or a side pull,
Yep.
don't go put some heavier device in their mouth. Learn how to use your body, and then they'll respond a heck of a lot better.
I agree with that, 100%. A lot of, but you must teach your horse to be light. Oh,
So my answer to bits sometimes is I'll do a little demo. I'll get Taz or one of my horses I've worked
Yeah.
with a long time,
yeah.
and
Use a
I'll
body.
get him in that round pin, and I just take his headstall right off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I go, you want to talk about hands?
Yeah.
I get up on, So even bridleless, I'll get him to do all this stuff. I go, well, what do you need reins for in the first place?
Yeah.
But, you know, the reins are only there to help your body. Your body is what stops the horse. Your body is what...
Yeah. Oh,
There we
we're
are.
back. We had to wait for a reconnection.
Sorry, we're in my arena. It's a little tough sometime.
Yep.
So
Okay.
just hang in with us.
Yeah.
We're only going to do a few more questions, and then we're going to
Get
call
on.
it a day. We got to do some other stuff here.
Yep, busy. People have asked about shoeing for Mustangs. You mentioned that Mustangs have very hard feet, and they're actually more capable.
I have never put a shoe on one of my Mustangs.
Yeah.
And if I ever had to do anything, perfect foot. It's hard. It's got great nails through it and all that. Now, there are going to be people that's a long time, and as long as they're on well. So, but they don't change the mechanism of the foot.
Right.
So I don't like to mess up a good thing when I've got it.
Yeah.
And if I have to keep my foot a little bit longer, if I'm riding up on rock, you leave that foot a little bit longer. By the time you're done, they've worn it where it needs to be, and they're not sore.
Yep.
But man, where my horses come from, it's all rock. You know, Nevada, where a couple of my horses come from, it's nothing but rock out there.
Yeah.
You know, so they don't have any like green fields and soft, loamy ground. They're like running around on rock like you wouldn't believe.
Well, we live in rainforest, and everything's gooey and soft, and you know the horses that we have, we don't have the rocky ground that you have unless we head up into the mountains.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff that we're riding on is cultured ground, I guess I would call it. And while we do have some gravel road-based type of trails, plenty of those.
Yeah.
The stuff that you have here, which makes hard feet.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of talk about when foals come out and people stick them in sawdust and soft ground and stuff, they don't have, I don't know if this is a fact, but I believe it, they don't have the foundation from the get-go of landing on hard ground and building up the material to say, whoa, better build a strong hoof for the first year or so, and instead they're on mushy, soft.
Well, we're constantly changing the nature of the horses in the domestic, you know, situations, you know, barns and things like that.
Yeah.
All right, let's do another one. Trying to get through a few more questions here.
Let's see, what else we got? Everybody's complaining that sound went off. Sorry guys, you know, technology, you guys are used to this with this channel. It works and then it doesn't work and then it works. I mean, half the time the damn thing, I'd be in the middle of a session on my own and YouTube would just crash. The app itself crashes.
Yeah. Are they hearing us now?
Yeah, they're fine now. So, you know, what are you gonna do? I don't know, I think we might have covered most stuff in here. A lot of people have been saying they're running out of batteries, they don't want to leave. Somebody has to go to the bathroom, they don't want to leave. It's recorded, don't worry, come back. Go to the bathroom.
You know, we might try to do, you know, a little bit tomorrow with the horse.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's Monday and people be at work and stuff, but maybe we can do a little bit sometime. And, you know, we'll do a little bit with the horse. Or, you know what? We might even come back later this evening. That might be the best thing. Come back a little later this evening and do a little bit of work with a horse.
Yep, right here, yeah.
And
Put
that,
the camera higher would be better.
yeah, if we get the camera situated and recharge all the batteries and all that, we may do a little bit of work with the horse, and I'll do a little bit of demo with the Mustang.
Yep.
You know, maybe one of the ones that had been troubled and see where they are now.
Yep.
How about that?
That's a great idea. I mean,
Good deal.
I'm never ever gonna say no to that. Hang off of his elbow, whatever it's, moving bags of grit, I don't care.
So what time is it now?
Oh, good question. This thing says 3:30.
3:30.
So we gotta recharge my phone. Guaranteed that thing's sitting at probably 10% by now. I don't think I've ever.
It's 3:33 now.
21%.
We could say a time, so everybody's got an idea of time.
Well, we should probably have some kind of, at least a snap. I mean, we're lit up in here. It doesn't really matter when we come back, does it? We're on Colorado time, everybody. So if you're on the Pacific Northwest, like some of you are, we're an hour ahead of that. I don't know, Colorado time, whatever the hell is mountain time? What are we, mountain time? What's Colorado
Yeah,
time?
let's do 6 o'clock here. That's 2.5 hours. That'll give us time to charge batteries, eat some stuff. I gotta deal with some chickens.
Yep, do some chicken stuff.
And we'll come back around 6 o'clock and maybe do a little bit more. We probably won't do as long here.
No.
But I will, I'll just work with the horse a little bit and show you a little bit about what we do.
We could probably use the remote mic at that time as well.
Okay.
That might work well.
And even if you had to film over in a round pin or something.
We can zoom in, yeah.
Yeah, if we need to zoom in over there, you'll
Yep.
get a basic idea.
Yep. Okay,
All right.
everybody, we're gonna leave it at that. I'm not looking at comments. If you're writing something lovely, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure,
Yeah.
though I can't see any of you, so I don't know who's sitting in their
Way too
boxer
far away.
shorts at their desk.
In their underwear. Or me. Anyways, okay, we're gonna leave it at that, guys. Thanks for popping in. We'll be back in, what did I say?
2.5 hours, 6 o'clock Colorado time. And we'll pull a horse out.
This is ridiculously exciting. You guys have no idea. This is awesome. It's every day for this guy, but nope. So let's
All
prepare
right,
some stuff.
well,
We'll be
take
back.
care. We'll see you in a little bit.
See you guys in a bit.